Yes.
Okay.
Alrighty. Thank you all for joining us here at 1520 Market Street. Our agenda for the day starts with a quick presentation that I just want to level set and update you all as to the consolidated planning process and how to move forward some of our priorities. Just kind of a recap of some of the work we've done, and it's pretty quick. Then we're going to really focus in on community engagement and having that conversation. To start that conversation off, we have some results from the survey that got about 200 responses, and so we'll go over that and just reflect on that together. Then we'll discuss other efforts to get the survey out there, and if we can do another second round push on that survey. And then I want to take us to a conversation. Last time we discussed, we had a really good conversation about wanting to really center and prioritize housing in our process, because we can't do everything. Let's find a core topic that brings us all together, and housing emerges that kind of focus of attention that connects all the different work that we're doing. And so with that, we want to talk a little bit more about a housing survey that kind of goes a little deeper. So we've got our top level results that we'll go through. We'll try to do another push, but also want to start designing a second housing survey. And then we'll also talk, as we talk about community engagement, that we've got a few folks who will be coming in July to in person here to St. Louis. That includes Liz, who is our primary consultant draft and consolidated plan, as well as the reinvestment fund, who's conducting our market value analysis. And so we'll obviously bring them in. They want to join this meeting, so they'll present updates at the July 10th meeting. But also we were thinking of using this as an opportunity to hold some sort of broader community engagement event where we invite the community in to learn more about the consolidated planning process, perhaps with stations, both for input and feedback, but potentially also for resources. So we wanted to again just throw this out there for the group to kind of discuss, share ideas on etc. And then we'll also reschedule our happy hour, and that's more or less the agenda. Any comments or discussion on that before I dive into the presentation? All right. So our consolidated planning process, we can go to the next slide. Just to recap again, what our mission. Next slide. Just to recap the essential elements of the consolidated plan. There's 5 pieces that we're moving forward and drafting. One is consultation and citizen participation. So what does the community think about what we're doing? What are the community's priorities? Second is a needs assessment that really looks at the unmet needs, the gaps in our community. What are the highest and best uses of the funds? And that is work that LISC and Civitas are leading right now. And we've asked for a timeline for when we expect that to be complete. I'll note that as a whole, all 5 of these, we need to be ready to publish a draft for public comment in October and submit the final copy to HUD on November 15th. And when LISC and Civitas present in July, they will share a more detailed timeline of the different work streams. But there's the needs assessment, there's conservation citizen participation, there's the market value analysis, which involves really detailed survey of the city's residential markets, the comps, how things are selling, identifying the strongest market areas, mid-market, weaker market areas, as well as next, and that's what the reinvestment fund is doing for us, as well as an analysis of impediment to fair housing. And finally, and arguably most importantly, the strategic plan, which we shared with you all to kind of think about on the front end before this meeting, because what the strategic plan is the core of it is a table that just shows how much housing we want to build, how many meals we want to deliver for our individuals, how many job training sessions we want to hold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's over 50 categories to detail out our goals for 2025 and 2029. So that's the work we're doing, just a level set, and I'll move on now to some of our priorities in this process. So we've got 5 priorities, that we've identified, as we move forward. And the first one is creating slash sunsetting slash redesigning programs. And that essentially means, especially with ARPA sunsetting in 2026, we have an opportunity to evaluate the work that we've been doing over the past few years, identify what's working, what's not, what could be working if we just made a couple of tweaks, and redesign essentially our portfolio of programs that we funded. So that's that first category, and there's going to be more detail for each of these 5. So that's our first category, creating, sunsetting, and redesigning programs. The second is updating our housing affordability policies. And I'll talk in more detail about that, and that's something that's already emerged, obviously, as a priority in this group, is how do we define affordability, how do we promote affordability, et cetera, et cetera. Third is designating North St. Louis, and it should say Southeast City as well, Dutchtown, Brentwood Park, Pleasant, as a neighborhood revitalization strategy area, or NERSA. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's important as well on another slide. Fourth is apply for the Section 108 loan guarantee program. HUD was recently in town visiting at Federal HUD, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, and explicitly told us to prioritize applying for a Section 108 loan guarantee. I'll explain a little bit more about how that works, but what she told us is that our line of credit is open and available for us to draw down funds to amplify and accelerate our investment in affordable housing. HUD very much wants us to go down this path. And fifth is updating our citizen participation plan and policies to really promote an ongoing dialogue with the community. And that's part of what we're doing with this committee. But what we really hope is that as we move forward over the coming months and towards the end of the process, after we have submitted the consolidated plan, that we can come back, reflect on this process, and you all can recommend to us ways that we can continue this dialogue in perpetuity. So it's not just once every 5 years or once every year. These are actually, and I'll talk a little bit about this now as we discuss and have its own slide later on. But I feel like part of the problem with our citizen participation requirements now, and I think I may have said this to some of you, but is that it requires us to do public hearings and public notices for absolutely everything. And the problem that emerges is that when everything is a priority, nothing's a priority. And that's very difficult for the public to follow along and understand what's really important. And that means that 0, 1, or 2 people show up to our public notification, with the exception of one that have funding attached to them. But in any case, what we really are trying to do is create, again, as I mentioned, a citizen participation policy of the process for ongoing community dialogue and potentially even community rating. Although there's some wrinkles and complications that emerge if you have a community rating application in terms of conflicts of interest, it can't be ever dispositive. It can't be that community rating process can't have decision-making power, but it can very much inform our deliberations and awards. So with that, let's move on to the next slide. So as we talk about redesigning our programs, here's a short list of some of our priorities, and please feel free to add more to this list, but here's where we are at currently. And the first 3 are kind of technical, and I'll cover them pretty quickly. Well, I'll try to cover them all quickly. But the first 3 are technical because what they involve are not changing the program itself, but changing what eligible activity and eligible use we are bucketing them under and how we're reporting them. And so we currently fund $500,000 of SLDC admin, and we fund it under our planning and admin. Whereas if we funded SLDC for $500,000 of economic development and attached it to a specific economic development program that we are supporting, then that could go under the economic development cap and free up $500,000 for planning and admin. One of the reasons why that's very important is because our planning department is currently being funded part out of ARPA and then part out of unsustainable NEPA funds that it's using to do a big push on neighborhood planning. But that money is going to run out. And currently we're up against our planning and admin cap. And so being able to free up $500,000 on a sustainable basis will be really essential for our planning department. That's one example. A second example is public services. And similarly, we currently fund Operation Brightside. Historically, we funded it for about $380,000. Operation Brightside, for those who don't know, is a little team within the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department that does a lot of neighborhood beautification work with a particular focus on graffiti removal and supporting community gardening efforts. And so that's Operation Brightside. And again, we currently fund them under public services where they contribute towards our public services cap, which is 19% of the 18 million. And if again, we can shift them into interim assistance, that frees up $380,000 or so for other public services. And I'll note that public services are consistently our number one most requested, most competitive, highest need. It's our most flexible pot of money. It's where we fund workforce development and reentry services, childcare services, healthcare services, and anything service, really. It's out of public services. And it's the most competitive in our application. We always get way more applications fund, because currently we're capped at that 19%. So this is an effort to shift funding so that we free up more money for more public services. And we know as part of our economic justice action plan that even though investing in the built environment is really essential, so is investing in people, and that if you're just transforming the physical built environment without lifting up the community and providing services, that your change is not going to be sustainable. Another example of priority is shifting our food pantry programs, which we funded a number of, from low to moderate income to low to moderate income areas. That's what LMA stands for, low to moderate area. And basically what that means is that instead of currently all our food pantries, or at least the vast majority of them, we've actually already shipped one of them to LMA, currently have to track each individual person they serve and their income, and ask them for their income. And that, a lot of our food pantry tells is pretty invasive. And represent a barrier to people accessing the services as well. Conversely, if we shift them to low to moderate area, then they just have to ask their residency where they live, confirm it's within their geographic footprint, which in effect would be the city. The city actually qualifies as a low to moderate income area. And we can comply without being as administratively burdensome. Because income verification actually also involves not just asking for their income, but pay stubs and all types of admin burden that we really don't want to force our food pantries to do. Those are three pretty technical ones. Our facade program is another one that historically we funded that program through SLDC at about $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Unfortunately, it's had a lot of challenges because essentially the way it works is that we started it for the first time, I believe, in 2018 or 2019, and SLDC did an RFP, or request for proposals, inviting businesses to apply to improve their facades, so their commercial buildings. It's had a lot of compliance challenges, including, frankly, one or two cases where we've had to cancel or HUD has basically flagged these programs for us. Because economic development, you can do it, but it's very tricky, the compliance element of it. You have to track jobs created, and the programs haven't always been able to demonstrate job creation. And then furthermore, there's a lot of tricky elements that come with funding construction out of CDBG in terms of Section 3, Davis-Bacon, and other environmental review and other requirements. So we want to really take a hard look at that program and see, we think it's worth funding, but how do we do it? Is economic development really the right place for it, or can we potentially put it under a different eligible use category where we can set it up for greater success? Another need that we've heard from the community is we have our home repair program that's focused on owners. But what about a home repair program for rental properties and support landlords for affordable housing? So it's something we definitely want to look at. It's also something that comes with its own unique challenges in terms of the long-term asset management requirements that will impose on us. But it's also something that we understand is a priority, and we welcome this group discussion. Oh, actually, no, we may not be able to do all of these. And we may also, you may have other priorities that we need to add in. So this is kind of the prioritization work that we'll be doing over the coming months.
The numbers you're throwing out annual
Yes.
or prospective?
Yeah, the right side, SLDC admin, those are all annual numbers. Housing, you know, for the first time right now spending CDBG funds on vacant unit turns. The Housing Authority, where we are supporting for $2 million, about 200 units, being turned. So it's a really high efficiency, impactful program where we can get vacant units online for about 10,000 on average. But we've never done this with CDBG funds before, and we want to see if it works. And if it does work, it's something we want to do more of. Similarly, CDBG small grant program. This year, for the first time, we are piloting a $500,000 small grants program. Again, we heard from the community that this was a gap in the ecosystem. These $1, $5, $10,000 small grants in particular, we're focused on vacancy to vibrancy, activating vacant lots. And so it's something that we're piloting right now. And if it works, we want to do more of, or at least explore doing more of. Green infrastructure maintenance. This is one that comes up constantly in our discussions with the planning department as part of the strategic land use plan, with the vacancy collaborative as part of the vacancy strategy initiative. Is we have so much vacant property, and right now we are dedicating $1.7 million annually towards maintaining and mowing that vacant property. But if there are opportunities to shift our model towards a more green reuse and a green infrastructure approach that may require more specialized types of maintenance, that's something that we, again, really want to explore, especially now that the Green City Coalition, which was formed a few years ago to maintain our green infrastructure, is finally up and running with a great new executive director. And then finally, something that we saw over the past year, as you may recall, we had a Heritage House flooding situation where we had 100 seniors roughly displaced. And we actually had to go up to DC and ask HUD for a special waiver to free up the funding to allow us to use our funding for relocation assistance. We did, and we have, and we, in partnership with the Urban League, really been able to support that relocation. But we have never historically allocated funding to it in a consolidated plan. So seeing as we seem to have some of these relocation events on, unfortunately, a pretty regular basis, setting aside some funds on the front end for relocation assistance is something else. And that could be a diversity of needs, whether that is moving or rental assistance or food or clothing or whatever these individuals need. So I'm going to pause there because I know I just downloaded a lot for thoughts, questions.
Yeah, you said you were able to turn around vacant units for $10,000. How's that?
Yeah. So first of all, we haven't done it yet, but we believe we will be able to. The reason why is because what housing authorities and also private affordable housing developers get caught in office is a debt spiral, where essentially they have high vacancy rates in their units, right? So they can't afford to maintain them, which means they can't afford to turn them, which means they can't afford to get it built, so they have less and less money. And what happens is that it's not that the unit is in terrible shape, it's that a tenant has left, right? And the unit needs a new set coat of paint, furnishing, some minor, it's called turning the unit. It's not a full rehab, it's a turn, where you're refreshing. Kate, you can probably speak to this even better than I can. But you're doing minor, more cosmetic work that's necessary for the unit to be correct. And so it's not a full rehab, which is why we do it at 10,000.
And like with the effects of the eviction moratorium that were in place during the pandemic, while we feel like the pandemic is over, like its impacts of residents not paying rent, but living in the unit for so long, you know, that cash deficit, a lot of like hitting stand. Several units are empty. There's no a pretty simple unit.
So how does it play when, so I know a person that has a historical house in the part, and it's a beautiful house, and she lives in one part, and the other part is two families. And it's pretty huge. She said the repairs is like somewhere in the ballpark of $200K. Would that be something that would fit this program where she can fix that other unit up and rent it out and still live in the other one?
No, because this again is focused on smaller. What I will say is that we have, with ARPA, a historic home repair program that's focused on historic homes, and specifically for homeowners. So she should look into that.
And you said that this, currently we're talking about is with St. Louis Housing Authority, so are these all public housing units?
That's right. It's 200 currently vacant public housing.
Oh, I thought it's just public housing?
No,
Or-
you're thinking about another one.
Okay.
So,
Like-
so we have $2 million that we have allocated to housing for.
Okay,
We have another roughly 2 million that we will be allocating, and not allocated yet.
Right.
For vacant unit turns for nonprofit, housing, developers, who also own portfolios that are in a bit of a debt spiral and need to pull.
In terms of the home, there, we can do that instead of asset management. So I used to do in terms of if CN does provide funding for these individuals, a way of tracking, making sure they don't sell it in a short period of time after it's rehab, because usually it's been repaired, increase the value.
Exactly right, and that also they are, renting, to low to moderate income individuals, and that they are complying with our fair housing protections. And so there's a lot of details that go with that kind of rental rehab home repair program that frankly, I wonder if would really press demand from landlords. In which, may pose challenges. In some ways, the home repair rental rehab and the housing vacant unit turns are two approaches to a similar problem. That are a little different, so we can discuss it a lot further. Any other, go ahead.
With the relocation assistance, how exactly is somebody going to? Whether it's gonna be like an application process, I'm just curious, like a little bit more of how someone would get that, because you said it could be anywhere from moving to food, so it almost sounds like an all-encompassing assistance.
Yeah, so what we've done with, Heritage House is that we entered into a contract with the urban. In that contract, we said, to the urban, we budgeted out, you've got this much money for hotel stays, was actually 90% of it. And then there was a little bit that was, maybe it was even all for hotel stays, is how they wound up using it. But we also talked about making a little bit for clothing and food fees or something else. Also needed, and then essentially the Urban League will pay the individual who can support and then submit to us invoices that say, here's what we paid out in relocation assistance, and here's how it's eligible, and here's the proof that this individual who received this hotel stay was also on the registry for the building that was flooded and had to be relocated, and then we reimburse the Urban League. So, thank you.
So with that, so is that the same thing where it's up under an umbrella or an organization like home repair? So do you have?
I do need lunch, I'm gonna start.
So like, do you have to be up under, what is it, a CDC or a nonprofit organization to get that resource? Or can you just apply straight through CDC, I'm sorry,
For relocations, for home repair.
home repair and relocation assistance?
So for home repair, you can apply directly to EDA. And then we will, once we verify and demonstrate that you are an owner occupant, we will send you off to our subrecipient, Mission St. Louis in this case, to provide those services. In the case of relocation assistance, you would apply directly to the Urban League and further league that request reimbursement from us.
What other relocation system would they cover, like individuals that are impacted by this, like first one assistance to move into a apartment?
Absolutely, that's something we talked about as well is, first one for them and other types of relocation assistance fund housing. But I think we want to spend easier and we've actually spent more than we awarded. Funded 90% of both health stays and all.
And I think a lot longer.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, shall we move to the next slide? So this is one of our 4 priorities.
Right.
And you'll see that there are 10 sub-priorities under it, but sorry about that. Second priority is our housing policy update. And so we've been talking about this from the beginning. What is affordability? What does it mean to ensure and promote affordability? And so we currently have a for sale affordability policy that is really one size fits all. It's the only for sale housing product we have, and the way it works is that, say we're building a home for $300,000, or developers building a home for $300,000. They apply to us for funding, and we say, well, if you make sure the home is affordable, sells for $150,000, we'll cover the gap, right? It's covered. So we'll provide a $150,000 forgivable loan. And that forgivable loan is forgiven once they sell that home to an income eligible buyer at an affordable rate. So then, it's,
So at first I thought you said the home had to be less than 150,000, then I thought you said the gap had to be less than 150,000.
no, the home, so first of all, 150,000 is a made up number.
Okay.
The actual number depends on the homeowner's income and what 30% the mortgage and interest rate, and making sure that the mortgage payment is less than 30% of their income. And then you cash that out depending on how much down payment assistance they get attached, et cetera, et cetera. The home can sell for 150, 180, 200, right? Depending on the mortgage and the down payment assistance, so long as that the individual's mortgage payment is under 30% of area median, right? So that's why it needs to be important. But again, using made up numbers, let's say that the home sells for 150, or if we want to make it, let's say the home sells for 200 and it costs 300,000 built, then CDA will fund that gap, right? That $100,000 gap. And we'll fund that in the form of a forgivable loan. And we will forgive that loan as soon as that developer, we make more for the developer who contracts a contractor to build a home. And then the developer sells the home to a income eligible homeowner. And at that point, we forgive the loan. You comply. Developer, you did your job that you said you were going to do, and we forgive the loan. So then what is the affordability hook on the new home loan? The answer is that we enter into a separate agreement with the homeowner where we provide $5,000 typically of down payment assistance. And then in exchange for that $5,000 of down payment assistance, the homeowner enters into a repayment agreement. It's also structured as a forgivable loan. And if the homeowner, and that loan gets forgiven if after 5 years that homeowner does not resell the property at market rate. And so what happens is that if the homeowner turns around and sells, and let me be clear, if you're in a neighborhood where the homeowner bought the home for 180 and the housing market is either at 180 or below 180, there's no problem, right? This policy works for me. Because honestly, what we want in that neighborhood is we want more comps, right? We want that homeowner to eventually resell the property at 190 or 200, right? Because it helps build the market, helps stimulate additional private construction, and there's a lot of vacant property there that can be developed, and so you're not really in as much risk of losing long-term affordability. But the problem emerges if you build this house in the West End or Benton Park West, and the house is actually worth $300,000. So that homeowner just bought it for $180,000. They have every incentive to turn around and resell it for $300,000 and then pay us back the $5,000. And then the challenge that emerges is that while that is wonderful for individual wealth building, and that's important, it's not good for preserving the long-term affordability of the community and the neighborhood, which is really the fundamental purpose of the program. It's an affordable housing program, not a lottery program. And so the question is how we balance these two goals. And that's where we have a number of alternatives that we think ought to be targeted by marketing, right? Because again, our current policy is good for lower market areas because it allows folks, it encourages folks to resell it relatively easily. It creates some comps, and the value of preserving long-term affordability is less acute in neighborhoods with high degrees of vacancy and weak residential markets. But again, in these geographies where you have so we're not proposing to change it everything. We actually want to keep our current policy in weaker market areas. But when we are building in stronger market areas, we want to be able to truly preserve long-term affordability. So here are three alternative ways that we could do this, that we're working with Liz to flesh out further. The first is expanding the home buyer recapture basis. So what this would mean is that now that homeowner that buys that home for $180,000 that was built for $300,000, let's say you put $120,000 into, their repayment basis isn't just the down payment assistance, it's actually the CDA subsidy, right? And so that means that they can't turn around and sell it for 300,000 because they would have to pay back the 120,000. So it immediately erases that incentive to sell. It's still ultimately, however, an agreement between CDA and the home buyer that probably wouldn't be more than 20 years. And also, at the end of the day, the home buyer can do it. It just couldn't do it for more than what the house costs within. But in theory, if the market went even beyond what it costs to build, they could still.
So would CDA be a loan from a lien holder against the property?
Exactly, that's how all of our housing works, is we have deeds of trust on it. We currently are lien holders on almost all the properties that we develop. It's just often a $5,000 deed of trust. And this would make it a $125,000 deed of trust. The second option is that instead of the deed of trust on the home buyer, we actually say, if this still, again, requires them to enter into an agreement with the home buyer. We say, we're just going to put a land use restriction agreement on the land itself. And the land now cannot be resold at an unaffordable rate. And honestly, these two go together very well. Because the land use restriction agreement is all well and good, but it doesn't actually have enforcement teeth on it unless we literally went to a court and asked for to prevent the individual from selling the property. We can cite the law, but the deed of trust is much stronger that it forces the repayment, right? So they go very well together. Go ahead.
Is that the same thing as a deed restriction?
Yes, effective. Honestly, what it's most akin to is a restricted covenant.
Yeah, which I kind of understand is sort of the same thing.
Yeah, but again, these go very well together. The deed of trust, that would be the home buyer recapture basis and use restriction agreement go very well together. In fact, every LIHTC deal has both of these from the state, is my understanding. A totally different now that I'll set forth is what we might call the ground model. Another way to think about this is a community land trust. And the way this would work is that there will be a nonprofit third party who's the developer. And they own, then we provide a loan, and they own the property in perpetuity. We put a LURA and a deed of trust on it, and we say this is going to be affordable forever for 99 years or however long we say. And the developer, who's getting a nonprofit with a commitment to affordable housing in their organization, their mission, what they do is then they sell the building, the house, the unit, if it's a condo or whatever, they sell just that improvement to the buyer. And so first of all, you're now going to get a more affordable, right? Because you're not buying the land, you're just buying it. And the other thing that happens is that now we've created a type of housing that is in a liminal space between rental and for sale. Because you own the building, but you rent the land. And what that does is it actually provides an opportunity to have permanently affordable step-up housing between rental and for sale, right? Because what you can imagine happening is that an individual who is otherwise renting, right, purchases this unit for $100,000, and then starts making mortgage payments. And that individual is immediately financially better off, because before they were making rental payments, but they're losing that money, right? And now they're making mortgage payments, and they're building equity in this unit. And then once they've built up $40,000, $30,000 of equity, they can turn around and they can sell this unit to another individual, a moderate income individual, who can come in and purchase the unit for $100,000 or $110,000 or whatever it is. And they can turn and take that $30,000 to $40,000 of equity that they've saved and earned and invest it into a full for sale house. And so again, it becomes a step up housing that revolves between different low to moderate income individuals who are graduating out of being renters into being full homeowners. So that's another model that has been successful in other contexts, including what Beyond Housing does in North County. And that has been successful in other communities that we're interested in exploring further through this process.
Got a quick question. Okay, so you said that they're not buying the land, so are they paying rent on top of their mortgage? Because that sounds like a trade report.
Yeah.
You think like you buy the camper on there and then you pay rent
for, yeah, lot rent. So that's why I'm like, would they be doing that on top of the work?
It's a really good point. That's the type of thing that we need to research further. I think it can be done in different ways. I don't know how Beyond House does it.
I know, I did a partnership, I used to work for the city of Online, and they, Online managed 40 homes in the, in Online, and they are part of the community land trust. And I know that same concept, buying the home, the asset on the land, but they own the land. But they have like a 99-year kind of ownership on it, but the thing with them is transferable to an immediate family member. They don't sell it, so Beyond Housing don't allow you to sell it externally. You have to sell it back to Beyond Housing, and they give you 2 points or 2%.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how they do it. My question is that also too is, when you got this developer loan gap, and you have a low to moderate, low to moderate individual buying it, what happens when they default? Who initially gets that asset back if they default on them?
I'm sorry.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right, because they're typically purchasing the house with a mortgage from the bank, and the bank takes first position, we have second.
Yeah, so CBA would be, they would have to just,
Occasionally, but it's very rare.
So I've never heard anyone having to pay rent on the land with a CLT, but, and my knowledge is a little rusty though, but I think I remember hearing that in other states, there was like state and enabling legislation that allowed community land trust buyers to only pay taxes on what the home is worth and not the full value of the home plus the land, and I don't think that we have that in Missouri, but that could be another, if we're talking about sort of housing policy and I think I've heard, like, maybe I've heard us talk about this over the years, I'm a little bit,
It's been a while that, because my nonprofit owns land, they don't need to pay taxes.
right, but I think there's something funky about splitting the property into a land and a house that, of course, Missouri.
Get their money anyway.
Yeah, and Beyond Housing seems like good folks to talk to, I'm sure that they know what the state
Yeah.
plan is.
And Equity Homes too branched off from, whatever 24/1, they branched off to Equity Home is doing it too.
Also, Kave, who I'm pointing to him because he should be sitting right here, he's not here tonight, but I mean, our place decided to go with that deed restriction model, in part to avoid some of this.
Yeah.
But I think, but the way they understand it, but can explain it better than me, is that it kind of gets you to the same endpoint, but it doesn't do that thing where you don't. And a lot of homeowners are like, I want to own the land too, like, I want this, like, like any homeowner, I want the whole thing. But then there are still some of those, like resale limits, like we're talking, yeah,
They don't allow you to sell external, you have to sell it back and they give you like 2% tax.
Yeah.
All of that.
that's what our place.
Another thing, so, okay, then you don't own the land, you talked about going around cutting grass, is that your responsibility or the organization's responsibility?
The nonprofits.
Okay. I'm like,
We don't want to have more grass. Like that, like single lateral problems and all that.
okay.
So why are we paying so much money to cut grass? MSD will give grants to replace grass with native plants. Yeah,
Because if you're talking about the $1.7 million that I alluded to earlier, the city has about 23,000 vacant parcels, including about 9,000 buildings, 14,000 lots, and MSD can develop them all in green infrastructure, and they have a responsibility to residents to keep them well maintained, while we beat them.
Oh, the goal is to be hard.
Yeah, the goal is,
Have a
that's
record.
exactly what
Yeah.
we're suggesting, is shifting to green infrastructure maintenance. That's the other thing. That MSC will pay to build it, but they do not want to maintain it. In fact, before MSC will agree to build it, they require a maintenance letter. But right now, we don't have an entity that is providing that green infrastructure. If we're able to dedicate more funding to green infrastructure maintenance, we can actually leverage that to get more MSC projects.
So if you look right by those giant MSD rain gardens, it says no one maintaining it.
No, they probably are.
Oh, okay.
But it's just the entity that often does it, that's the thing, it wouldn't have been built if there wasn't a letter of commitment from some organizational capacity that agreed to maintain it. Often that'll be a SID or a special business district or, even private entities. But I'm here, we can dig into it if it tells.
Oh, no. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what do they agree? So the organization look like? Could it be like a lawn curb service, or does it have to be a bigger scope, a bigger capacity? That's one question.
So we have a Green City Coalition, that's kind of what it's designed to do, but it's just getting up and running. But the idea is that they could maintain a lot of it, a lot of different pieces of it, including rain gardens and maintaining watering, planting, cutting, but there's more to it than that, but honestly, we'll need to learn more. All right, go ahead, Don.
Can we make, I don't know, are we allowed to use the section 108 fund to like finance loans ourselves? Like, could we then give mortgages to folks and make one of the condition on the mortgage that it's resold accordingly?
Potentially, but let's get to that when we get to the section 108 loan, but we do absolutely use CDBG funds, currently, to, fund the housing partnership, provide down payment assistance. And so, I know down payment assistance is ineligible to CDBG funds, and the way section 108 works is anything that's CDBG eligible is typically section 108 eligible. I don't know about providing our own mortgages, so that's a slightly different question, but we it's a, like, yeah, most of them are, yeah. So other policies that I want to flag here before we move on to the next, slide is, one is, this is a kind of crazy idea, but that we heard from, Munich, that told us that they run a 5-year funding cycle for housing. So instead of doing a NOVA every year, where they announce we have this money for housing, they do it every 5 years. Basically, they say this is how long it takes to go from conceptual design to construction. And so it just reduces their administrative burden and allows them to have a single cycle. So right now, what we have instead is we have dozens of projects in different stages of development because we're constantly doing, every year we award funds, and some projects move faster than others. And so our team is doing 17 different things with different projects. Whereas conversely, what we could do is just having more regular, and by the way, I'm not even sure that we can do this pursuant to that, so we really need to research it. But do a 5-year funding cycle where we essentially pool our money up front and we say we're awarding all of this money right now, going through this 5-year cycle and then awarding something to think about. Another thing to think about is LIHTC certificate of consistency standards. What this is that every year the state asks us to certify that every single LIHTC project is consistent with our consolidated plan. But our consolidated plan does not have any standards by which we can determine whether or not projects are in fact consistent with the consolidated plan.
Just put an NA.
No, we say every LIHTC project is consistent with the consolidated plan.
Because they're not in your document.
And because the city needs more affordable housing. But frankly, we would like to have clearer standards for our LIHTC projects that we can then hold our LIHTC projects to. And then frankly, this also gives us a little bit more leverage in the state funding process. Because if the state is, we typically see somewhere between 3 and 7 awards. Let's say, we recently had some good years. But if we know that the state expects to make this number of awards, and there's a project that, say, we know the state views very favorably, but the city does not, if we have some standards, we could have some grounds to deny that project. And then that could also free up more space for another project the city has more support for. So basically, we do every year a letter from the mayor to MHCC saying, here are our mayoral priorities. That emerges from a interdepartmental review process, including representatives from CDA, the planning department, SLDC, LRA, the building division, the Department of Human Services, Affordable Housing Commission. We all come together, we review all the projects, take that through numerous times, get presentations, and we identify, then we share our takeaways with the mayor, and we identify takeaways. This would give more teeth to that in allowing us to then be able to say, these are the mayor's priorities, these are consistent with the consolidated plan, and these other ones are not consistent with the consolidated plan and also not. Again, something to think about. Architectural plan rights. We really are interested in doing a pre-approved design at CDA, a book where we say, these are all the housing designs that we previously approved. And that you don't have to go and start from scratch if you're interested in building a new home. You can just take this, it works really well for these developers to build it. And so to do that, though, we would need those rights to those architectural plans. And so adding as a condition of our funding those rights or those architectural protections included in this pre-approved design book. Another item is fair housing protections. We started, about a year and a half ago, including fair housing protections in our NOFAs, and are now starting to include them in our rental, contracts. Essentially, requirements for mediation before eviction, and requirements, to use, certain model lease provisions. But we want to refine that further, and there have been some very reasonable questions from, some landlords about, various elements of it. In particular, there's been a particular focus on our ban the box provision that essentially prohibits, landlords from inquiring about, criminal records. But that some landlords fairly raise that there are some legal requirements sometimes that they have to, in order to, for example, check, sexual offender registries, things like that. So there's some refinement to be done, and we can, clarify that a little bit. And then, do we want to explore new housing products? In particular, things like rent to own or four-family ownership / rental. What I mean by four-family ownership / rental is there's this idea that I think has so much intuitive sense and currently doesn't fit any HUD products of rehabbing a four-family with an owner occupant in having one of the units and 3 tenants inhabiting the other 3 units. It makes so much sense, but we don't know how to deal with HUD. So let's explore some of these questions. I'll pause there for any further discussion on housing policy.
So to go back to what I was saying about the two families, so it doesn't matter if it's a 2-family or a 4-family?
So I think this fits under the new housing products.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And let's add that into our notes.
I know that SBA said that it's 2 families where the problem is the homeowner has to report on their residents' income, which becomes complicated because it's just like.
That has an asset management.
Yeah, challenge.
And that's kind of what I asked last time we met. You know, there's so many multi-generation homes now, or grandma gets ill, she moves in, you know, who's in and out of the house. You know, who's income or income taker, that.
And that's all, when I talk about asset management issues, whenever we invest in rental property, it creates asset management administrative burden, which is not the end of the world, but it's something we need to be aware of. These complicated things.
So in terms of new housing products, that relates to like single individuals, not necessarily tied to like a development or organization, they qualify.
Potentially, that's certainly something we can explore.
Just one last thing on community land trust, and I have to leave early again, I'm sorry, it's a hard night for our household, but, so the city of Columbia, Missouri has a community land trust that is kind of unusual, that it was stood up by the city and it's still staffed by the city. And, I used to know the person who ran it, and he has moved on, but he was great, but, I'm reading about it here, they have like the city council appoints the board, but it is, I believe it's like a nonprofit board, but it's staff, like the administrative duties are all performed by city staff. So it's kind of an interesting, like public nonprofit partnership. And it's in Missouri, and they're making it work in Missouri.
And I will say that, like, I mean, one of the defining features of community land trust, there's a lot of different pieces, but one of them is this kind of public-private partnership and board that typically the kind of tradition goes that community land trusts have a board that is split in 3 parts. It's 1/3 residents, 1/3 public, and 1/3 private experts or academia or subject matter experts in one form or another.
That's exactly how it is.
So with the, architectural plan rights, is that something that's in effect now, or are you still working on it?
Almost all of this are things that are not currently in effect and that we want to include as part of our consultant plan.
So if architects don't want to relinquish the rights to their claim, then does that automatically make them available?
That's what it would be under the futures. Part of your application would be saying we give up or not give up, we, as part of this application, provide. Yeah, but it's not in effect for.
So how long will it take to find that, if this is going to be implemented?
It's this process. We have to include it in our November consolidated plan.
I think it's a great idea, especially with a lot of the vacant land, and a lot of people that live in these communities would like to buy some of this LRA properties to do just that, especially on the vacant land. but they don't know how to or get the funding to do so with, challenge credit. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think it's a great idea. I think the process of, getting rid of a lot of the derelict properties and even property for sale by owners, would potentially turn a community around, especially the ones that don't have a plan. I think that would be a sure shot for a lot of people to take advantage of that.
No, I guess I would post it, like, I know you said the LRA is, the city has this large number of commercial or rental
Vacant
properties.
properties.
Is there something in the CDBG where it allows an individual, not necessarily an organization or developer, to apply for funds to acquire acquisition of that city-owned property, or do you have to be tied into a development organization? Can an individual apply for funds and say, hey, I have this issue for each city-owned lot and need the support and funding to acquire and then rehab it?
Not currently, and part of that reason is there are so many compliance requirements with CDBG funds, such as, for instance, just being registered in SAM.gov and being actually incorporated in a nonprofit and good family. Like, these are not funds that are built for individuals. They are funds that are built for nonprofits or, frankly. It's something that we absolutely want to explore, but the way to do it, by the way, if we want to do something like that, is exactly what we're doing with our small grants program, where we are saying we are awarding $500,000 to a subrecipient, which is a nonprofit, and then that nonprofit awards $1, $5, $10,000 grants to smaller groups. So it's something we're exploring, but it's not currently. But I think that that's a key takeaway that I've heard a lot from the dialogue with the community is how can we serve individuals more directly. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. See that.
Thank you.
Duncan is a housing analyst on our team.
When you're ready, like we, your team, like you guys.
And a former CBA employee.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been.
Yeah. In any case, next slide is about neighborhood revitalization strategy areas. What these are is that they allow us to go above the 19% public service cap within these geographies. Historically, we had these 4 neighborhood revitalization strategy areas that are detailed here. They expired back around 2019. And we want to reestablish nurses. Now, the updated nurses, what we hope to propose, but we need to work with you all with the list really is going to be putting together this first application, is a NERSA that applies to all of North St. Louis, as well as a NERSA that applies to a lot of Southeast city. And the reason why is that these are the highest low and moderate income areas, but the reason also why we want to go a bit bigger than these is that nurses are most useful when you can fit an entire public service program inside. Because if your public service program includes both NERSA and non-NERSA areas, suddenly you now have to account all the dollars you're spending within the geographic boundary and outside of the geographic boundary. Because one of those doesn't have the public service cap applied to it, and the other does. And so the larger we can make these, the more effective that they will be. Any questions on this?
When are they presenting that in our July meeting?
Perhaps we will have to ask them. They'll definitely provide a timeline for when they will
Okay,
present this.
So it's, but maybe not.
Maybe not, but. Next slide. Here we'll start talking about section 108. So what is the section 108 program? It is a loan guarantee program. It provides access to low cost capital. So basically it's a low interest loan from HUD to the city. It's around 5.6% interest right now. It's just above 35 basis points, or 0.35% above treasury bills. And so how does it work? What we do is we commit our CDBG funds as collateral. So we receive each year 15 million of CDBG funds. What we will be doing here is committing $3 million a year of that for up to 20 years to repay this loan from HUD. And then it can also be paid, however, from other revenues. So say we invest, well, I'll get into that in a slide, but it can be repaid through other revenues as well. And it can fund just about anything that is CDBG eligible, whether it's housing, home, facility, blah, blah, blah. Next slide. A little bit about timeline. HUD has encouraged us to really accelerate our application timeline, and they recommended that we seek to apply by August. So we're going to be moving quite quickly on this front. And then from there, once we apply, they will hopefully approve us, and then we will start executing the loan documents, which does also include a board bill, as well as an agreement, contractual agreement between HUD, the Bank of New York, and the city. Because actually the funds are routed through the Bank of New York. I'll also note here that there's two types of Section 108 application. There's a Section 108 project application and a Section 108 loan pool application. And what that means, the difference there is the Section 108 project application is we're asking for $20 million for this specific building, this project. A loan pool application says we're asking for $20 million for projects like this, like single family homes or rehabs or whatever. And then we're going to go through a selection process after you award us that to select the final projects. Next slide. So what is our borrowing capacity? In theory, we could actually borrow up to $90 million because it's 5 times our CDBG allocation. But that would also require us to commit about $7.6 million in CDBG. And as you'll see, we do not have that kind of CDBG funding available because our CDBG funds are already supporting dozens of critical programs across the city. So frankly, where I'm at currently is that I find it hard to imagine committing more than 2 to 3 million of CDBG. If that even, I think we'll really have to evaluate the trade-offs. But where we may be able to apply for a larger loan is if we can generate some sort of income and revenue off of the investment we're making, right? So if we can invest these funds into projects that generate revenue that can then be used to pay debt service, then we can essentially leverage the CDBG commitment with other financing streams. So next slide. And that's where this speaks to, that the repayment doesn't just have to be CDBG. It can also be third-party loan proceeds. It can also be parking revenue. It can also be tax increment financing. I'll note that the last Section 108 loan that the city did was back in 1995, and we took out a roughly $90 million loan. And that $90 million loan was $50 million to redo the Renaissance Hotel by the Convention Center. But that was paid off not with CDBG funds, but with the TIP. So they drew a TIP around the Convention Center. And then instead of the Section 108 being paid back with the CDBG funds, it was paid back with TIP, except for $5 million, which was paid back to CDBG. And at the end of the day, the TIP did not fully cover. Not endorsing that strategy. But that was 50 million. Another 20 million roughly went to Dar's Webby, so public housing, and another 20 million went to scattered site housing construction. So that's our history. Next slide. Eligible activities, acquisition of real property, rehab, housing, rehab, construction, reconstruction, etc. National objectives, this all has to benefit low to moderate income persons, age, elevation, prevention, slums, and needs. And there are these cross-cutting requirements: environmental review, uniform administrative requirements, safety, location. Next slide. This is the same as what we've been talking about the use for both redevelopment and development. Next slide. This is the most important slide. This is a list of potential investments that we could finance potentially with Section 108. And bear in mind that this is an open and evolving list, and welcome your input and ideas. And we absolutely cannot do all of this. So this is not a statement of commitment to any of these projects in any way. But things that we could do include new residential construction, both single family housing and mixed and middle housing. It includes residential rehabilitation, and that it could include, we've highlighted there 4 families of vacant schools as buildings with a particular need for rehabilitation, but honestly it could be any type of building. And I'll pause there to say that those 4 first items, the new residential construction of single family and missing middle, 4 family and vacant schools. In our mind, this would not be scattered site. We would want to do this really intentionally with an effort to block by block make markets and bring communities back. And so being really focused and targeted, instead of spreading this across the entire city, really being focused, where are these 3 to 5 square block areas where there's we can find a combination of new housing construction, rehab of the vacant school, rehab of key multifamily buildings, pair it with the investments we're already making into community gardens and green infrastructure to really lift up the neighborhood and build the market. Other more specific projects that we could consider as well, and now we're being much more specific in terms of building and location, include the railway exchange, which is a 1.2 million square foot former office and building, former Macy's as well, that could be converted to residential. Folks, developers who have looked at it have estimated they could fit 450 or more units in there, on top of leaving a few floors for retail and mixed use. But the cost is in the realm of 300 million. And that's not to say that Section 108 would be the full source. The only way to do it, really, at least as far as I'm concerned, is with a combination of LIHTC credits, historic credits, and potentially, if the state ever passes, office for residential tax credits, and stacking those all together. And then Section 108 could potentially help pave the path, but it's very speculative. Same goes for the municipal courts building. I think, I hope folks are familiar with that building. It's right by our building, right by our city hall. It's really a beautiful building. It's a tragedy, really a blemish that it is vacant. It's owned by the city, and so whether that is as a hotel or as early childcare or offices or what have you, or retail, what have you, thinking about, it's always on the city's list of priorities because it is a city-owned asset. Another item that we're considering is a housing manufacturing facility. Next week, we'll be releasing an announcement that we are preparing to do a design competition, particularly focused on manufactured, prefabricated, modular, and other innovative housing techniques. And the long-term goal is to bring a housing manufacturer or more housing manufacturers to the city. And so if this could, actually in Boulder, Colorado, they use their Section 108 loan to build a housing manufacturing facility owned by the city, which is then ground leased to the housing manufacturer. And then finally, the Millennium Hotel is another big blemish on our downtown. That's a list, and welcome your thoughts and comments. Oh, actually, can I do one more thing? That at least for the single family housing, this one middle housing, 4 family, we have vacant schools. The kind of model that we're imagining, again, involves some degree of revolving of the funds, right? So let's say that we are doing for sale, right? And that means it sells. So it would be fully financed with Section 108 plus any other tax credits we can throw things, right? But mostly Section 108 finance. And then when it sells, then we use that to pay back the loan, right? So it's not only funded out of CDBG. Similarly, if it's rental, DC actually has a Section 108 loan pool that has been pretty successful, where essentially what they do is that they say that 75% of the net operating cash flow from the rental properties is going to pay off that Section 108 loan. So there are different ways that you can revolve the fund. And so you can take a $2 to $3 million CDBG commitment, and if you can revolve the fund 50%, now you've got a $6 million debt service, annual debt service that you can leverage the loan up. But I'll pause there.
The construction of like tiny home villages, these, activities.
Well, you need to be able to go. There's specific CDBG quality standards that apply, but yes, that's.
I was just gonna say, I think Beaumont would be a good one, because I don't know if y'all been behind that, they're building houses right now, they started 160,000.
Yeah,
So they know something about what's about to happen fairground.
Well,
Like, I don't think
we're
it's
walking in the park. So to be clear, yeah, So to be clear, that's a project that we're funding.
Oh,
Okay.
that's why I'm like, so might as well, you write it.
And it is a critical geography, that's $5 million of ARPA funds that work there with Tabernacle. What's critical about that intersection is one of the future key kind of nodes for our city, because that is where both the Brick Line Greenland will run up to Fairground Park, and it's also the northern terminus of the North-South Metrolink Green Line. And so that spot is really critical, and that's why we're investing there, and yes, I think all of these schools are potentially great investments.
Especially when the south side sits on rain, you know, like, so it's a large area.
We need to apply for this, put our application in, you, not us.
Okay. The we part gets a little broad, I'm like.
So now what about parks, like for instance, Fairground Park for All, because I sit on that board and we want, trying to find out how about getting funding for the revitalization of that park, because it's all playing a part in the Tabernacle, the big, the Brick Line, any housing products that's coming out of it. So how do we get that involved?
I believe park improvements are CDBGL, also, I think that that's a great suggestion, and that part of the section 108 process, it'll move faster than the consolidated planning process, but it will be integrated into it. And so the timing that we're looking at is releasing a draft section 108 plan in July and submitting it, and then opening up the public comment for 30 days, and then submitting it to PUD in August. We first of all heard that comment today, and encourage you to continue highlighting that.
What about, capacity building funding for CPC? I feel like that was the big funding, allocation in the past, that kind of just fallen off into like the aldermanic control funds and all that.
There's a cap, first of all, on how much we can spend on it, on capacity building in general. But I think that falls under the program design, whether we can, these historically CDA funded neighborhood associations and CDCs across the city. And it's something that we should absolutely include in that kind of program redesign discussion.
We can give this back.
Yeah,
We don't have much time.
we don't have much time. Yeah, let's just pull the survey up and then. No, I don't. You remember when I said this would be a brief presentation? I'm so sorry.
How many more slides to there?
No, this is the end of this. Now we have a separate 30-page deck. But this one is much quicker because. You want to go there?
Kevin's gonna take over here because I have some evening plans, so everyone enjoy, okay? Thank you. All right.
He's like, I got
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
So these are the results from on the survey. You haven't taken it. I know everybody that is on the committee has taken it and has shared it. Thank you. But yeah, we go to the next, so like the third slide. Yes. So as you can see, we have 164 people that responded, 6 people skipped the age range. I think what I want you to look at, I think is most important, is let's look at the answer and the skip. Okay. Write those down. The question number. Okay, everybody. Okay. Go ahead. We're gonna go through this pretty quickly.
Okay, I'm on household
Okay.
income.
You go.
Good, next one.
164,
Wow.
6. We have large.
Really just.
Oh, yeah. So we see the ethnicity, the race, okay. How many people live in your household? What type of household you live in? Okay. How many were skipped? Wow, that's wow.
Yeah.
Community priorities. Please rate the following communities based on their values. 50 people skipped this.
Why would you skip this question?
So.
Years ago.
Say it again. It was a long question, and it was a lot of pieces, right? It's a lot of pieces. Okay, go to the next one. That was number 8.
Oh, these are.
So,
they
you know-
They're gonna drop out.
Yeah, it's gonna drop off.
You know, it's-
My concern was,
Wow.
and once you have like a college education, we're not gonna stay focused.
I mean, you know, I had a doctorate and I was like, what?
See, it's all,
What?
yeah.
You think it could have been a glitch that they was running into, they just, wow.
It was a lot.
Uh-oh.
How prevalent do you think illegal discrimination is in your neighborhood? Went up one. So we
But that's
lost another
usually
person.
why the glam, like, you know, you're not gonna read it.
Well, this is the one we still have to kind of, we'll have to pull it back up. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Bye.
Did
everybody
stop?
Everybody just like, go get the.
Wow, wow.
Question like.
But and it's there.
But maybe it's a written not applicable.
Yeah.
Is this like a beta or anything? Can we not change it at this point?
No, we're gonna.
Okay.
I don't think we will.
It's still live,
We don't-
right?
Yeah, it's still live.
So then we call that version 2.0, I guess, which keeps it separate a little bit, yeah,
Something, yeah.
for data. So.
Yes.
15 people hold.
Oh, well, I'm pushing 23 now, so it's taking a while.
15 people, and the vast majority said no. Oh my God. Only 2 people answered. One of them was preferred not to answer.
Right.
And it wouldn't have reported it to anyone,
Right.
so I think it's how it's written.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have an incident.
Why? It
Right.
really makes a difference in 157.
What number is that? That's what-
Yeah.
let me see, give me one
It's
second.
not bad.
How many were there
It
total?
was 26.
26.
Yeah, there's so many drop downs.
Yep. Yep.
Everybody came back to 26.
So it could have been a great traffic of people that take the survey and you start to get into the question and we just.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly. It's just the survey.
Yeah, we lost 50 people,
But they
basically.
came back, they
Oh.
sort of come back, with the, yeah, just now. We got snow.
Yeah, the easier ones you kind of get.
Hey, look, we got like 40 people for our newsletter.
Right.
Hey,
I'm telling you,
100
consider and say,
And-
hey, you'll be entered into a raffle for a gift card if you answer
It's
every
simple.
last
It's about-
question.
Think about it. We can't.
There are studies
Is
that.
that kind of like bribing? Is that like bribing?
There's studies that show that
Right.
you answer different, your scores, you get like,
Baby, I'll
your
pick some
level is not free, but like.
yeah.
Depending on
What,
that.
Karen?
So I have somewhat of a marketing advertising background, and there are studies that when you're incentivizing, I don't know, right, that applies, but people answer differently, they think differently, there's something to gain. So you're not getting the real visceral
Mhm.
stuff,
I'm just gonna put it in.
but if it gets something out of them, you just have to know they were incentivized.
Yeah.
So this is my thought process, is that if someone made it to 30 questions, why? The ones that they skipped, they did not want to answer. Because if they were, what I looked for is how many they skipped, and when you skip and then you come back, that says something about how it's written. So just the way that the questions are written, meaning maybe more yes, no. Like a scale
Go back to
for
the household income.
Likert scale 0 to 5.
0 to
I
5.
love that, yes.
And not so many, because the questions, I'm sorry, Gary, but the questions, if you remember, it's still like, what do you find, like, least, it's the most important and least important. It's like, that, it's a lot of, I don't like this many clicks. It's too many.
Ranking on this card too.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I think I just sent everything. I'm like, everything's important.
Exactly.
All things.
Exactly. There was a lot of, one of them, like, you had, it was like 1 for 7, and you had to choose, like, you had to say 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's one of the
I
ones
think
that
by the
was,
time
that
I
dropped
got
off.
to like 5, I was like, I don't really care. These are my top 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know when I was like, really like, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just curious about the library skills. I know what the ethnicity there was largely white, and there was a portion of Hispanic folks that did the survey. With the population that I work with, that were like a largely Hispanic population,
like your skills are kind of culturally confusing.
Okay,
So that, like, when I do therapy, like, so when 5, how is your day? They're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
In terms of skills.
so what's a better approach?
I would probably, you did an open answer, but I don't know if you have room for that.
It's not easy to
What
quantify.
about like strongly agree, somewhat agree?
Yeah, maybe give them
Different.
Okay. Okay.
Strongly disagree.
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
And we can only offer it one language.
Yes.
We have a very huge Hispanic population in St. Louis.
Yeah.
City, St. John.
Yes, we, that's one of our,
So, we need more. Change.
yeah, well, we've addressed that.
Yeah.
So fair to say that if anybody wants to work with me with maybe the redesign of some of the questions, we can do a smaller committee on that.
Yes.
But it'll be like this week at least. But we want to get it done sooner than later. Okay,
Can we get volunteers for that working group?
okay. Yeah,
I could, it's just a matter of,
okay,
I think in the next week or two.
so
The next-
include me on the.
On the
invite,
email?
I'll- Yeah, I'll try.
perfect. Thank you. Because.
Yeah.
So I'll tweak some of them and then I'll send it to you all and then we can,
Can I also ask that group to start thinking about the housing
Yeah.
specific survey?
yeah.
You
You didn't send that yet.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
put it yet.
Okay.
Did you catch that?
I don't know if you'll have.
Thank you.
Tom, okay. What'd you say? Tom,
We're talking from the same.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the same time, talking the same thing.
what was it?
Getting on that folks.
Yes. Okay. We got 4 people, and then we'll work on the housing one too. Housing, 10 questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
We could did there.
But you saw the lose people after a while, the interest, the focus, you know?
I mean, it's honestly, they don't apply. You know, the landlord, you know, I'm thinking, I own my house, there's no one discriminating, so it may not apply, so we need to think way broader.
Yeah.
than-
Yeah.
But we are trying to get to that,
Right.
person, but that's probably,
Right.
that's.
Especially,
the
I mean,
obvious.
if you haven't rented in the last 10 years, like, just skip the question.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be like one of the, not to add another question.
If they're away from.
Is there a lot?
Homeowner versus renter, and
There
it
should be a lot.
pull up separate questions. Cause you can do that.
So we can build
I
on
mean,
it, yeah.
Pretty good. I didn't write. So I'm not meant to.
That way you can stop getting so many questions.
They don't apply.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So we're gonna see photograph that you put through.
Like, step over things, yeah, so you know it's not a.
Like I'm on.
I got 1,000 more questions.
Here you like, oh.
No,
Yeah.
I'm using a survey monkey, but I want to use people or something else because.
Yeah, Google does that.
Yeah. Google's-
Yeah.
that goes.
What's left?
Anything else on the survey? I know we're over time, but I want to discuss one last item. And that is, again, we'll have the consultants of town, in July, and I want to hear any thoughts as to the best way to have some sort of, community engagement, town hall or event, on the consolidated plan when we bring more people into the conversation. I'm imagining stations for different types for housing, for social, for public services, for different types of work. I'm also imagining inviting some of our grantees, so that people can see examples of the type of work, that's being done. And ideally grantees that they also have resources, so that it can be a bit of a resource fair as well. So that's some of the things that are on my mind, but I'd love to hear thoughts.
I think that's good, I think the last time that I suggested that networking and very, mentorship with the grantees, networking, you know, exchange information. I think that's great.
And at the town hall, I know a lot of the renditions that we see with the grantees, the before and after of the projects, because I think that was a good inspiration for people like me to see the process because it can be very discouraging. So if you see something that is discouraging, it may not look like it can possibly happen to something that actually happened, stick with it. So I think that would be a good, inspiration piece to add to that town hall.
Where are we thinking location?
Yeah, I think default is digital rec center. I really like Wolf Rec Center. It's one of the most trafficked, city rec centers. We've got that thing for, you automatically have a lot of traffic and then you can try to kind of pull people in. A lot of young people, so you can get a lot of young, you've got food, you can get the young people on the road.
Yes. Is there a venue that's like years, the projects you can talk about? That you can really walk up and see?
Yeah, I think Wolf is a project. And then we got the expanded rec program, and then we are also funding a roof replacement for Wolf. So that's good. Yeah. And then we also fund the urban league right across the street with a couple of
Well, if you
projects.
have a relationship there, we don't need to reinvent the wheel application, and it's a bit like, let's just go for it,
So are we thinking, so the week of July 10th, right? We have our meeting July 10th. I think that's that, okay. Because
It's in
The
the
third.
agenda.
Okay, right, yeah. So we'll be meeting twice then. Just so you all know. Okay. Oh, July 10th, same time.
And we'll also look for your help to advertise the meeting, get
Yeah.
the word out.
Get it out. I do have a question. Have you shared the survey, the link? And if you have, are you updating the public engagement, link?
So it's staying alive. I thought we talked about it was shutting down at the end of May, but it's.
No, it's a lot.
Okay,
No, no, we were shutting it down to make edits, but we decided not to.
Okay,
Just
so
because it was already out there, but.
do we want to push it before we
I think
refresh
we
it?
probably refresh it now.
That's
the whole
it.
working group, and then push it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. But whenever you send it out to, like, if you send it out to your community, just put it on the. We won't ask those folks that have already taken it. Because we're gonna have to have all those.
Oh, the only other thing to add to that, I don't know if you all can, because I know we talked about the languages. I realize a lot of people around me can't read, even in English, so they have to hear it, read to them. Like, have, you know, how when your kid is taking a test and they can hear what's on there, they have that same thing. So, yeah, at least everybody that lives in my complex, they have to have it.
The reader is involved in. I don't know, but you have to know how
I
to
think
use
about
it.
older people, they don't know how, like,
Yeah.
you put the icon next to it, that, you click on it, and it's like a automated voice picture.
Right.
Question one.
So how could we make it more accessible? So, the folks you're talking about, you have to be able to.
I like the idea of having like a button and it like reads it out loud.
That's the thing.
Yeah, we'll look at, we'll see.
Cause otherwise they get frustrated. My grandpa just called me, he said, you're doing, come on.
You gotta read them the question.
Yeah.
Or do it for them, and they give you that.
Yeah, I've done a lot of ADA science on websites and things, but, for survey. Oh, yeah, big difference, but I don't know if Google or Survey Monkey, you know, you have to plug these things in, but I can do.
I'm like, okay, that would be great, 'cause I live in Fairground, and yeah, a lot of people, when we have, I work with Transform, SBL, and a lot of times when we have surveys, they're like, I don't know what to say, so we'll have to read the question out loud, so.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
It would be hard to show them what you're saying and clicking on, it'll have to be kind of a scroll or something,
Yeah,
because
because the way.
they
the
won't know
survey
which one you're checking.
But
Is
it's
that an accurate way to
the
collect?
question, that's better than nothing. So you can.
It almost seems like the real, or the best way to do it, which I know is capacity intensive, it's canvassing. It's knocking on those doors.
And that's from Transform SEO, that's what we used to do, or we host the event in the library. I mean, it was incentivized, obviously, but, yeah, that's how we got the most. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, the reinvestment fund will be going around the entire city essentially as a part of their market value analysis. They won't be canvassing, they'll be driving it, but maybe if they can, if they approach it, I think it's, we could ask, they won't want to.
No,
And let me ask a question, this is throw something out there, have you thought about like making public notification, like reaching out, getting an ad on a radio station on 4.1, 95.5, I thought about that, because people are always in their cars, they're always listening to music, and, you have to hear that jingle, or you hear, oh, CDA does a survey, this website, and, have you thought about that as a kind of mass marketing?
Yeah, I was on the PR. Also, we were trying to do some social media, and we can absolutely look at radio ads as well.
What about Metro bus signs?
They're getting rid of that, aren't they? Metro bus on the actual buses.
Oh, yeah, because
They want them to all look.
Because look at the ability of the bus miles for a lot of these programs and, think about that, you got a younger generation demographic that catches the public transit. Yeah, and they have the signage on the bus, all that.
QR code.
Yeah, all that, yeah. This is QR code kind of world going into it.
Just need to get lists to do it all.
Put a poster.
No. Yeah, well, that's what the flyers are, so I'll send you all the flyers.
Yeah, the airport, too, yeah,
Shuttle
international
buses,
Yeah.
all of that. Now we get all these international folks telling
Yeah,
us. St. Louis, really.
It's
More hotels.
So you got a lot of people that work.
Yeah.
You got nurses that live here, I mean, and stuff like that too.
So do we know, this might be for another day, what percentage of rentals are empty downtown, or, just the stock, for the next time we talk, we don't really know, but just more or less of, if they put 460 in the railway exchange building, do we need, where are we today, what, that number, I would like to know that.
And if they have to do it all at one project,
Well, you can tell me.
implement it in phases.
I know everybody wants.
Railway exchange, it would have been done in phases, or it has been, that large lump sum has to be done at once.
It would probably have to be done. It's to answer your question, the city of St. Louis has about
Thank you.
170,000 housing units and about 140,000. However, a lot of those housing units are terrible,
Want to take your sign,
Oh, yes, it would be great. My 2-year-old will probably write on it. Thank you.
if you don't want to take your name tag with it, you can leave it with me, and I'll put them on my bag.
We want to do.
Are we adjourning?
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
We didn't have any questions on mine, did we?
No.
Okay, thank you.